Good afternoon, folks. This is Robert Chappell, Executive Editor at Madison365 with your daily update for Wednesday, March 10th. Thank you for joining me. It's nice to have you here. We're going to talk a little bit first about some news. We're going to do, we've got Dr. Jack Daniels, who's the president of Madison College, joining us in the second part of the show today to talk a little bit about sort of the everything went down a year ago, kind of reminisce a little bit about how things happened over there at Madison College. And then also, just his thoughts about how higher education and society and stuff has changed fundamentally in ways that aren't going to change back. So I think you'll enjoy that conversation. So first, let's talk real quick about coronavirus numbers. I'll make it quick because there's not a lot to talk about because it's good news. So we don't have a lot of concerns. Any questions, drop them in the comments, but I can tell you the coronavirus numbers are much better today than yesterday. Remember, yesterday we saw this weird anomaly, like fewer tests, but more cases. Today we have the opposite. We have a lot more tests and a few more cases, like 50 more cases, but like 3,000 more tests, right? So for the day, yesterday, we were at like 31.8% positive, which is not reason to panic, but reason to be concerned. And today we're down to less than 11%. So much, much better. And proves that yesterday was just a weird data day. Nothing to panic about. Even better news than that. The 7-day positive test rate has been stuck at 2.2% for 3 days, which is good. That's fine. If it's stuck at 2.2%, that's below 3. It's not going up. Today it's a 2.1. So even better. More good news, our daily rate of deaths per day is down to single digits. It is 9 today. That's because we reported 14 fatalities today. One of them in Dane County, we know. And we're just... that still people are dying from this thing still. That's never good news. But far fewer are being reported every day than were being reported several months ago. And it feels to me like we're headed downward. Obviously, we're heading downward, but it feels to me like we're headed downward to stay down. It also felt that way last June, and we saw what happened after June. So don't let your guard down. But the numbers are looking good today. The other piece of pretty good news today, just shy of 13,000 more completed vaccinations in the past 24 hours. And I don't have this differentiated or split out, but some of those 13,000 were the second dose of the Pfizer or the Moderna vaccine. And some of those are the one dose of the Johnson & Johnson. We know that that's being deployed now, especially for teachers in several locations around the state. Another 25,000 people got at least one dose. And some of those are the first dose of the Pfizer or Moderna, and some of those are the one dose that also is the final dose for Johnson & Johnson. So top line, we have just shy of 1.8 million doses have been given to a total of about 1.1 million people. About 10.7% of the population has been completed. Right, we have to get that to like 75 or 80. So it will be a little while, but we're getting there, and we're getting there faster. Right, we're accelerating the rate at which people are getting vaccinated, which is great news. We did not yet expect an update tomorrow or Friday on the variants. Just as a reminder, last week, Friday, we got an update that there were, as of that point, 26 instances of the UK variant and 1 instance of the South Africa variant, and still 0 of the Brazil variant in Wisconsin that were, and this is out of a pretty small sample. So there's certainly more cases than that, but those are the ones that have been identified, but that's still a relatively small percentage of the samples that they had. So, I'm still feeling like the variants are not out of control here in Wisconsin by any means. So Um, this is a good question. I'm curious, DJ. DJ says he's still waiting to hear when high-risk people will be eligible for vaccine. It's supposed to be this week. I am curious where you heard that, because I don't think that's ever been the case. I might be wrong. I have been frequently on details like this. But I have not heard any effort from the state to make people eligible based on health risk. I have also heard anecdotally about people who've gamed the system a little bit and either said, "Oh, okay," and where people have said that they're first responders or something to just get in front of the line. I haven't heard of, but again, those are all anecdotes. I haven't been able to verify any of them, and I've been trying. So I think there's some danger, and there's some worry, and there's some sense that people are jumping ahead of the line. I haven't been able to really identify very much of that and verify very much of that. DJ clarifies now that that we would learn this week when those folks will be eligible. As we talked about yesterday, there are, as of March 1st, 700,000 more people became eligible. And so it's going to take, even at 12, 13,000 a day, it's going to be months before we get everybody who's currently eligible vaccinated. Yeah. This may very well be true, Bobby. Tomorrow they're going to announce a new eligible group. I have not heard that, but it may well be true, and I'll be watching for it. They did say, as of March 1st, 700,000 more people became eligible. It'll take months to get just to those people. So the rest of us are going to be waiting a while. Tyson has a good question. And again, this is an epidemiological question that I'm not quite expert on, but my understanding is that just like flu, vaccine for coronavirus does not mean you will never get it. What it does mean is, if you do get it, it'll be much more manageable for you. Right? There are people who every year get a flu shot and still get the flu, either because they get a different strain of flu, or because the vaccine doesn't mean automatically that you can never get whatever you're vaccinated for. It just means that if you do get it, your body will fight it off. And that usually means also that you are less contagious, not zero contagious. Which is why, even when we're all vaccinated, we got to be a little bit careful at least. And that's, it's not a magic thing. It doesn't mean you can never get it. It makes you less likely to get it. And if you do get it, it makes it pretty much so that you will not be hospitalized and you will not die from it. All the vaccines carry that outcome based on their testing. So I hope that answers the question, Tyson. I think that's pretty much all I have on coronavirus today, but I do have a lot of other news to get to before we get to our interview with Dr. Daniels. So I'm going to mention a couple of things here from the national news and local. We had a ton of stuff come in today. Really good content on the website today of Madison365.org, and just looked at the featured stories. A lot of really good stuff that I'll talk to real quick. First of all, though, I just want to mention Andrea Sahuri. You might have heard about this. She is a reporter for the Des Moines Register in Iowa. And she was doing the same thing I was doing, same thing thousands of us were doing in late May and early June, and we were covering protests. Some of you might remember watching me gag and choke and cough and wheeze when I got caught up in some tear gas downtown Madison. The fact is that I've got my badge here. When you have this on, this isn't a magical legal document, but it does say on here, the person identified in this document is a member of the working media and authorized under Wisconsin and federal law to observe, investigate, and report on newsworthy events. The fact is, we journalists don't have special privileges in that sense. Everyone is entitled to observe their government in action, and that includes government agents like police. Now, we often get a little bit of extra leeway. Like I was able, during those protests, I was allowed behind the police lines. I was allowed to, I kind of talked back to the police a little bit when they tried to tell me to go across the street when they were aiming guns at black children and didn't want me to look at them. They told me to go across the street, and I said, no, thank you, I'm fine here. But that's also a little bit of white privilege. Andrea, with the Des Moines Register, notice, not white, and was arrested for failure to disperse because they were trying to clear out the protest area, and she put her hands up and said, I'm press. And they sprayed pepper spray in her face and arrested her. And because when they tried to grab her, she, did like the natural thing. We try to get away. They also charged her with resisting. Today, she was acquitted of all those charges. Thank goodness. Because the thing is, like, a prosecutor can decide not to prosecute that. And the fact is that arresting reporters is just not a thing that we do in this country. Now, she was acquitted pretty quickly. The closing arguments started at like 11 o'clock this morning. And I think I got the notice at like 2 o'clock that she had been acquitted. So that's the right outcome. Should not have had to go through that. She should not have to be justifying her work covering this protest. It's absurd. So just that's, yes, I am pro-journalist. That's my opinion. But that's the good news over there. Also today, I wanted to tell you about this conference that's coming up on Saturday. It's called This Is Her Space, Harmonious, Empowering, and Real. This is a conference put on by Dear Diary of Madison. It's a mentoring program for girls of sort of high school age. There are several other programs for black girls of like middle school age, but this is for high school age specifically, age 13 to 17. And it's a free conference and it's virtual. And B. Simone, big Instagram and television star and entrepreneur. She was trying to make her first $1 million by the time she's 30, and she did that. And she's going to be the headliner for this thing. She's going to be speaking at this conference. But here's the catch. You have to register by 9 o'clock tonight. So if you go to Madison365.org, the story is on the front page. Find that, hit the link, register by 9 o'clock tonight so you can get all your conference materials delivered. But if you know any black girls of high school age, get them into this. It's only 3 hours on Saturday. It's like 11 to 2 on Saturday. It's not a big commitment, but probably definitely worth the time if you can. This is Thomas Gibson. He is the new chancellor, Dr. Thomas Gibson. He's the new chancellor at University of Wisconsin-Stevens Point. It's not particularly common to see a black man in that position. There's a few. He's the third now in Wisconsin. Dennis Shields in Platteville and Whitewater, and I'm blanking on the chancellor's name down in Whitewater. But it's kind of remarkable for of the 12 or 14 campuses, have 3 of them have black chancellors. That's pretty cool. Add that to the new president at Lawrence University, who's a black woman. All positive. But Mackenzie Crum, our reporter, spoke with Dr. Gibson a couple of days ago and has that profile on the site today, Madison365.org. Take a look at that. Tonight on PBS Wisconsin's website, okay, this is not on PBS Wisconsin on TV, but it's on pbswisconsin.org. This is Angela Fitzgerald, who is the host of Wisconsin Life, the PBS Wisconsin show. And she is host and producer of a limited series show that's going to be digital only, online only, called Why Race Matters. And I have a little trailer here for you. I'm just going to, I'll just play 30 seconds. I'll play it real quick. This is, oops, sorry.
I'm Angela Fitzgerald. Join me for a conversation about Black lives and the Black community in our state with PBS Wisconsin's new digital series, Why Race Matters. I talk with community members whose work and lives center on race relations. We'll ask questions about Black mental health, civic engagement, and how to create a more racially equitable Wisconsin. But more importantly, we'll pay attention. For more racial justice content, visit pbswisconsin.org.
So that's tonight. It'll be online on their website at 7 p.m. But because it's online, you don't have to tune in right at 7. It'll be available at 7, and it'll be streaming, and it should be available then onward. And then they're going to post a new episode every week. Thank you, Scott. Dwight Watson. I could see him. He was a panelist at our summit last year. Dr. Dwight Watson is the Chancellor of Whitewater. Thank you very much, Scott. I hate when I do that. More local news today. But on that Why Race Matters story, Almanac Anderson spoke with the producer, Angela Fitzgerald, and has a preview of that and some more photos and stuff on the website at Madison365.org. Also in the news, in the past couple of days, the Mung Institute in Madison held a free vaccine clinic for Hmong and other Southeast Asian elders. Because as we know, there are significant disparities, racial disparities, in vaccination. And Dave Dahmer spoke with Peng He, who runs the Hmong Institute, and there's a lot of barriers. You can just say, just go on my chart, make an appointment. It's not going to help somebody who doesn't speak much English, right? Or maybe doesn't have access to that technology. So a lot of these Hmong folks have been here 40, 50 years. They're refugees still in a lot of ways, and may not have access. So the Hmong Institute took it on themselves to make this happen. This is the kind of stuff that's going to have to continue to happen to get these marginalized communities vaccinated. So Dave Dahmer spoke with Peng. That's a nice story about that on the website right now. In national news, Martha Fudge is officially the Secretary of Housing and Urban Development, the first Black woman to hold that job. So congratulations to her. And also in the Senate today, Merrick Garland was confirmed as the Attorney General. And of more interest locally to every one of you, the $1.9 trillion COVID relief fund has been passed by both houses of the legislature. So the president is expected to sign it on Friday, which means we will all get our stimulus checks on Saturday. No, we won't. No, I'm just kidding. We won't. It's not going to be that fast. But it's a big deal. There's a lot more to it than the stimulus checks. I don't mean to be hyperbolic, but it might fundamentally change the way government works in this country. Like, it is that big of a deal. And I'm going to try to get somebody on here in the next couple of days to talk about what exactly is in this bill, because it is massive. It's not just the stimulus check. It's going to really change the way people think about government and how it works. And good or bad, whether you agree with it or not, it's that big. So we will get some more. I'm hoping to get either a member of Congress, because I know a few of those, or like a political science person who can come and talk about it a little bit more and help you be informed, because there's stuff in it for every one of you beyond the stimulus check. There's stuff that all of you can use, and I want to make sure you're fully aware and of what that is and how to access it. So stay with us. I know this is already getting kind of long, but stick with us. I'll take a short pause, and then I'll be back with Dr. Jack Daniels, Madison College. He has some really interesting things to say. Don't go away. We'll be right back. And joining the program today, Dr. Jack E. Daniels, the third president of Madison College here in Madison. Dr. Daniels, how are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastically well. And you, Rob?
Doing great. Thanks. Thank you for joining us. Now, first of all, let's just set where things are now. At Madison College, you got your Truex campus, your Goodman South campus. What is the state of affairs right now? Are you mostly still virtual? Are you are you having in-person classes, that kind of thing, just for the rest of this semester?
So for the fall as well as the spring semester, around 70% of our courses are fully remote.
Mm-hmm.
Another 25% are hybrid. So there's a combination of the in-person classes as well as online. And about 5% of those classes are purely in person. Now they focus on healthcare, our human and protective services, which is our police academy and our fire academy. And there's some of the advanced manufacturing courses that are fully in a in-person type of framework.
And it sounds like those are the classes that you really just can't do virtual, right? You have to have a hand.
Yeah, it's difficult to do welding on a screen.
That's right. And is that going to continue into the fall semester? Or do you think
the fall semester, what we're doing right now is looking at what classes can we do in person in a much more substantial way, what we could do in hybrid in a more substantial way, and probably decrease the fully online. So my guess is that you're going to see substantial increase in the number of classes that will have either a full in-person or a component that will be in person. Okay. We will have those classes ready within the next 2 weeks. In our summer classes, we'll be adding some in-person classes as well. But those schedules had been set some time ago. So we're just doing some modifications with them now.
Got it. Now, about a year ago at about this time, you and many other people in your position were making some really difficult decisions, right? What stands out in your memory from those couple of weeks in March of last year?
What stands out, number one, is March 15th.
Yeah.
So at that point in time, we closed down fully for 2 weeks. And during those 2 weeks period, the faculty did tremendous work in modifying their curriculums so that they could go fully online. And after those 2 weeks, we went fully online, and that's where no public is actually accessing our facilities.
Right.
And so for the next few weeks, then it is how, in fact, that we got students to be successful in those courses. So we had to provide a lot of services to them, as well as our faculty who continue to do a great job. So by the end of May, we had completed all of our spring-based courses for our students and then walked into summer. But during summer, there were large numbers of faculty who had to take all of their curriculums and put them in an online framework. And so there was a lot of work that was being done. Some of the faculty had never taught online before, but we had to do lots of training during the summer, as well as provide students online services that they would normally access in person, but they could now do it online. And so, those first few months were, it was a constant change. Everything was evolving, and we knew day by day there were changes that were happening. But we had started to look at what some of those impacts were prior to March 15th. In fact, I think when we first started to think about this was probably early to mid-February. And we were watching what was actually happening globally with this pandemic. But it was quite a task, and it still is.
Yeah. Do you think, we hear a lot in the K-12 space of like learning loss and kids are going to be behind. And do you see that in the community college level and at your place, or do you think you were able to adapt enough to keep students caught up?
I think for the most, for the most part, we were adaptable and so were the students. But we also recognize that there are students who learn much better in person than they do online. And some of those are older students. And, our average age is like 26, 27. So therefore, it's difficult for them. But also understand that our students brought with them other external issues that we had to be focused on, they had to focus on. Because if in fact they were working, they may have been out of work. We know that there were many folks who are in the hospitality industry, the retail industry. They've lost their jobs and they're not coming back. And so they had to deal with that. Plus, many of our students were the parents of these students who were in K-12. So they were at home helping their own kids be able to become proficient. And that was like double duty.
Mm-hmm.
And so, there are other pressures and things that we had to work with students on that you may not have had just with that young student who was in K-12.
Now, one of your priorities during your whole tenure at Madison College has been addressing inequities, disparities. Did you see any particular disparities or inequities that were exposed by this whole thing in terms of access to technology or anything like that was surprising or that you learned from?
Not as surprising.
Mm-hmm.
We think about the technology. So we got CARES funding and CARISA funding from the feds.
Sure.
We actually provided the technology to students who actually needed it. And we had a process for that. So we had over 1,300 laptops that were given out to students. We also provided additional assistance and emergency grants for them, whatever they needed. We kept our food pantries as open as we possibly could. So those things that we were helping with the students, because that's what they were dealing with and feeling. But we also know that when we think about students of color, we saw some decreases within the success ratio in those folks who were actually attending the college. The biggest issue, which was the most surprising to me, was the fact that we went from a roughly 50% of male-female. Mm-hmm. We lost 8% of male students. So really? Our male student enrollment went down to around 42%. And I think there's some reasons for that. I think some of those reasons, their comfortability with online. But many of them had to start to go work 2 and 3 jobs, especially when they have families. You don't have that type of time to come into the classroom to get the skill training. And you're going to try to go to a position where at least you can get as much full-time work as you possibly can, but it may not be the skill level that you would think that could actually give you, higher wages. But we did see that, and we have some focus right now in terms of how do we bring some of these students back to us.
That was going to be my next question: is do you think those students will come back? Do you think this is a temporary drop off, or are their lives completely derailed in a different direction now?
When you think about this, and a lot of this is about economic, and the recession of 10 years ago, you had a lot of people who, because of the banking decline, finance decline, housing decline, they were losing their positions. And probably during that time, 10 years ago, you may have seen half of the folks raise their hand to say, yes, I would like to get training. Mm-hmm. What we're seeing now, because this is a different situation, we're seeing probably 6 to 7 folks are raising their hands that I need that training, because they can't go back to where they were, and they need the training to go to someplace else where they can get a family supporting wage. So my expectation is that we'll see some increase, and I'm not going to say it's going to be that substantial, but we'll see some increase of students. And we're trying to focus on those populations that have been hit the hardest. Sure. As well as to meet the demand that we have, especially within our area here in Dane County, which is about healthcare, it is about IT, and it's about small manufacturing. So those are the types of things that we're focusing in on to hopefully attract more students in to get those skills that they'll need.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing you say, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that this COVID year has caused some fundamental shifts sort of in the economy and in the job market that could actually lead to more students looking to the community college route to get that job training. Is there anything else, either in the economy, in the student population, or in the delivery, or how community colleges are going to work, that has changed this year that you could see sticking? You know what I mean? Like, are any of these changes that you're like, actually, this works pretty good, we should keep doing it this way?
You know, when we think from an administrative standpoint, my guess is at any one time, we won't be back to where we were at 100%. We may have 60, 65% of staff on our sites at any one time. Because what we've learned is many of our tasks can be done remotely.
Yeah, right.
And so you take things like accounting and finance and some of the other administrative tasks that can be done remotely, they're going to stay in remote. And we will look at that, and it obviously impacts how do we use our spaces more effectively within all of our campuses throughout our district. I also think that this environment has caused us to look at how can we use this opportunity to expand our inclusion and equity efforts, especially in hiring. And what we learn is that you don't necessarily have to be here to teach here. And so that starts to open up some other avenues for us to look at, especially for instructors of color who may be at different ends of our nation, right, be able and don't want to come here for whatever reason, even though, I mean, we would love to have them here.
Sure.
But, you know, if you take an expert and that expert is living in Texas, why shouldn't we be able to access that knowledge that person has that can be conveyed to students? So that's a different way of what we have been looking at in the past, but something that we are looking at right now.
That's fascinating, and it sounds great. It sounds like you guys are coming through this and you know, using this as an opportunity to kind of poise the college for the future.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. We're not looking at what was, because what was actually is what was. We're not returning back to March of 2020. So how do we position ourselves to better serve our communities and students so that they're getting the training that is necessary, or they need to move on to the four-year institution? And it's working through many of the partnerships that we develop. It's working with many of the great faculty that we have and staff, because it is everybody's on deck. And how do we move to a position where we're going to be as most successful in what our mission has intended us to do?
Well, Dr. Daniels, I really appreciate you giving us a few minutes today. It's been great talking to you.
Good. Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
And we appreciate Dr. Daniels for joining us. It's always nice to have those additional voices on the show. That's all I have for you today. DJ mentioned, sorry, just getting your comment here, DJ, talking about members of Congress. Glenmore, definitely first choice if she's available. She's also very busy, so we'll definitely try. That is all I have for you today. I appreciate you sticking with us and paying attention, and you know, hit the share button. Let's get the actual news spreading through the ecosystem here if we can. It is another beautiful afternoon. Get out if you can. Don't forget daylight saving time starts this weekend. Put that in the back of your mind if you didn't know that already. And I'll be back tomorrow, 4 p.m. We will see you again. See you again tomorrow. Have a great night.
This is 365 Media.